was a Secret Service agent for 23 years. I spent most of my adult life in law enforcement. I spent 4 years in the Presidential Protection Division with the Secret Service. A lot of my time was in the counterfeiting investigations. I investigated the Irish Republican Army that were counterfeiting U.S. $100 bills. So I have a wealth of experience in both protection and investigations in the Secret Service. I was not surprised in the least. One thing about the Secret Service, we have deception in our playbook. It's something the Secret Service has utilized many, many times over the years. And I'll harken back to history. During World War II, the Secret Service engaged in extensive deception when President Roosevelt traveled to war zones. He traveled to Casablanca and then to Yalta. And the Secret Service engaged in extensive deception to hide from the American public that the president was traveling overseas to a war zone. In 1952, when Eisenhower was elected president, before he was sworn in, he was protected by the Secret Service. He traveled to Korea to an active war zone based on a campaign promise he made. The extensive deception was made to keep him safe in Korea. In 2003, President George W. Bush traveled to Iraq, an active war zone, over Thanksgiving, which is an American holiday in November, and that was based on deception. And President Obama traveled to Afghanistan in 2010, extensive deception there to keep his trip secret until he arrived on the ground in Afghanistan. So deception being part of the Secret Service playbook is something that we're well known for, and we utilize a lot to keep the president safe. Well, it's not improvised at all. We in the Secret Service, we do extensive planning, and whenever the president travels, especially overseas, we have multiple contingencies in place. For example, even when the president travels domestically in the United States, there's always two Air Force Ones. They're duplicate airplanes. Now there's actually three because of the fact that we have another plane that we got from another government that's been brought into service. But there's at least two Air Force Ones that travel with the president. And then there are spare planes called senior executive aircraft that are a little smaller than the regular Air Force One, but they're used for emergency evacuation purposes. And so when the president travels overseas, we have that whole package with us, and we go into extensive plans for evacuating the president in the event of an emergency, whether it be a terrorist threat, a medical emergency, a crisis, a hurricane, an earthquake, you name it, we've planned for it. And the Secret Service has a plan in place. So nothing happens at a happenstance. Everything is pre-planned. That's why the Secret Service is as good as it is, because we leave nothing to chance. So I'm not privy to the intelligence anymore because I'm no longer an active agent, but I understand from what I'm reading, it's very serious threats against the president, unprecedented serious threats. And there was no doubt in my mind the Secret Service took the actions they took because they felt it was necessary to keep the president safe. The Secret Service may not have planned this exact procedure where the food truck was brought up and he walked out the other side of Air Force One onto the food truck and then across the tarmac to another aircraft. But the fact that we may need to evacuate the president or secrete him out in a deceptive way, those are always on the table. The specific way you're going to do that may have to be acted upon that day, within minutes or within hours. So, but the concept is thought out, and the means to execute the plan is there already. So it's not something you have to bring in from the United States. Oh, we need to bring the president out. We have to wait 6 hours to fly a jet in from Andrews Air Force Base. No, the assets you need are already going to be there. Plus, we work very closely with the host country, whatever country we were in, the host country's law enforcement and military services. And we have our own military that supports the Secret Service quite extensively. And the Air Force flies the jets, the Marines fly the president's helicopter. They have their own security forces, and there's special forces in the United States military that assist the Secret Service. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I don't want to say, because I don't know for a fact, but that this was already written out. This scenario was written out before the president left Washington, D.C. for this trip to Turkey. But the fact that we had the assets on the ground and the ability to do this is something I'm confident of. Every time the president takes a trip, the Secret Service is capable of doing something like this to extricate and save the president and keep him safe. Well, when you're at an airport environment, you have danger on the ground. You could have a pre-planted explosive device on the ground. You could have someone who breaks the security perimeters with a suicide vehicle trying to blow up the president or the aircraft before it takes off. You could have an assassin showing up with a handgun or a knife. So you have those type of threats that could happen in any environment. And then once you lift off from the ground, you could have a drone attack. You could have a missile attack, either through we call a man-pad, man-portable air defense system, which is used by terrorist organizations now to shoot down aircraft. Or you could have a sophisticated missile attack from a foreign military organization. So any of those are a possibility. And again, I'm not privy to the intel now, but from what I read in public sources, there was a serious threat that the Iranians may try to shoot down the president's plane with a missile. And I think the threat was so serious that a decision was made to take the president off Air Force One and put him on another aircraft. When I was on the Presidential Protection Division, I was the lead advance agent for the president's trip to San Francisco. And it was a big trip. He not only went to downtown San Francisco, he also went to the Lawrence Livermore Nuclear Laboratory. It's in the East Bay area of in Lawrence Livermore Laboratory on the east side of San Francisco Bay. And because the trip involved multiple cities and multiple motorcades, we actually flew in four of the presidential limos. Whenever the president travels, there's at least two limos that go with him, the main limo and a spare. In this case, we had four. We had two limos and two spares, and the entire package, Secret Service follow-up vehicles. So one package was on the East Bay in Lawrence Livermore, the other was in San Francisco. And we got intelligence information that a group of demonstrators were planning to block the president's departure from the hotel he was at in San Francisco to cause a disruption and to embarrass him. Not necessarily to assassinate him. There wasn't a threat of violence per se, but there was a clear threat to block the motorcade, to embarrass the president, and to make sure his day was disrupted so they got their message across. Well, we had that information, and I was very, very lucky and able to bring the other motorcade we had in from the other side of San Francisco Bay. We brought it in about 3 o'clock in the morning, positioned it at the hotel, and when the president was going to leave the hotel, we had the decoy motorcade depart first, and of course the hundreds of demonstrators followed that, disrupted that, and stopped that motorcade. And as soon as the demonstrators moved to the decoy motorcade, we took the president out in the real motorcade and took him back to the airport with no problems whatsoever. Now, the reason why that was so deceptive, these two motorcades looked exactly the same. The same police escort, same California Highway Patrol, San Francisco Police Department motorcycles, the same Secret Service agents in the follow-up vehicles. It looked exactly the same. So the demonstrators had no idea that the president wasn't in his limousine in the decoy motorcade that went first. And it was a very successful move. So those are the type of things we plan out ahead of time to make sure the president is kept safe. There's no question about that, Alfie. That is a great question. The job as Secret Service agent is much, much more difficult than when I was an agent on protection. There are many, many more threats. We really didn't have to worry about drones. We may have to worry about someone hijacking an airplane, either a small plane or even a helicopter. That happened once. Someone hijacked a helicopter and landed on the White House lawn in 1974. But we didn't really have to worry about drones. Now that's a major, major worry, drones. Cyber attacks, someone affecting the president, the elevators in a building, and someone shutting the elevator off remotely. We didn't have to worry about that 30, 40 years ago. I mean, if you got in the building, you can maybe do it, but you wouldn't have to worry about doing it remotely. Now you have to worry about that. So it's a much more difficult job. But on the other hand, I still have family members who are Secret Service agents. I know the director, Sean Curran, and the deputy director, Matt Quinn. They're great people. They're tremendous leaders. They've instilled total confidence in the workforce. And the men and women of the Secret Service are dedicated, and they do their best every day. And I'm confident, 100% confident, the president is in good hands today. It's a much more difficult job. There's a lot more moving parts, but the president is in very good hands with the Secret Service. I don't really go to sleep worrying, is the president, is he in danger? Yeah, he's in danger, but the danger is being mitigated thoroughly by the Secret Service, in my opinion.